I don't know if you're aware of it right now, but or not. But God's got a bear hug around you. I mean, He is squishing you in love, and He's just bearing you, and just. I thought you might want to know that. All right, here's a question that I've gotten a lot throughout my writing career. It says, "You place a lot of weight on free will," and I do. He says, "Yet free will strikes me and many others as an unintelligible concept. Free will either has a cause or it doesn't. If a free choice has an antecedent cause, a prior cause, then it's determined. It's caused and determined, thus not free. But if free will doesn't have a cause, well, then it's capricious and random. So again, it's not free. So whether caused or not, there is no free choice and there is no third alternative," he says. So what do you think about that, Greg Boyd? Well, here's the thing. I mean, so the person is arguing, suggesting, and actually he was wrestling with it. It's not raising it as an objection. It's something he's wrestling with. But it's often raised as an objection, and they're claiming that free will is an illusion. It's a non-concept. It's incoherent. Okay, it's not just wrong. It's incoherent. And I'm actually going to probably spend several video blogs on this topic of free will because I think it is so important, and it seems to be under a lot of attack lately. I just read recently a book by Sam Harris on free will, and it's a well-written book. There's nothing new in it at all, but yeah, he's a really good writer. But he raises this objection and other objections that have been raised, throughout history. So here's the first question I ask folks who believe in God, at least, and yet who raise this objection. I ask the question: is God free? Is God free? I meet so many Christians who raise this objection, especially Calvinists, as you expect, who raise the objection that it's an incoherent concept. And yet, when I ask them, is God free? They want to say, well, of course. In fact, everybody that I've ever met has wanted to say that God is free. And I mean by that, free in a libertarian sense, which means He could have done otherwise. Power of contrary choice, however you want to turn it. God could have created the world or not. He didn't have to create the world. God could have saved us or not. He didn't have to save us. If He had to save us, it wouldn't be by grace. He could have spoken through Balaam's donkey or could have spoken through a turtle. He had a lot of choices. So they don't want to say that God is determined, but they want to say that free will is an incoherent concept. And the question is, how can you have it both ways? If free will is an incoherent concept as applied to humans, well, then it doesn't all of a sudden become coherent because we're applying it to God. If it's an unintelligible concept, well, then it's unintelligible whoever you apply it to. And so if you're going to say that God is free, and you have to say that if you're going to say that God chose to love us, that God chose to save us, then you have to admit that free will is a coherent concept. Now, maybe we can explain it, maybe we can't, but it is a coherent concept if you're going to apply it to God in a meaningful way. And if God's not free, then think about this. Then that would mean that everything God has done has been predestined. Not even predestined, there was no one who destined it. Everything God's ever done, everything that has ever happened in history, it's all been determined. Yeah, even God's locked in this predestination. That's ultimate fate. So the alternative is to say that free will is a coherent concept. All right, we'll flesh more of this out later in subsequent blogs. Until then, live in love as Christ loved you and gave His life for you. Go out and love somebody. Bye-bye.